everybody, my name is Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Today we are continuing on with my completed series from my SAS list, and it's going to be a 3x3 today. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that I'm going to be discussing 3 completed series from my SAS list, and all 3 of those series contained 3 books in them. Yes, they are all cozy mysteries, so let's jump right on in. So the first series I'm going to talk to you about is the Nantucket Candlemaker mystery series by Kristen Brecker. There are 3 books, well, 3 books in every series, so I don't need to keep saying that, do I? No. Book number 1 is Murder's No Votive Confidence. I read this book in March of 2022, and I gave this book 4 stars. Book number 2 is Murder Makes Sense, and I read this in August of 2022, and I gave this book 3 stars. And the third book is 15 Minutes of Flame, and I read this book in October of 2022, and I gave this book 2 stars. I'm sure you saw a trend occurring when I was discussing my star ratings per book. Yes, it's no coincidence. It's exactly what it seems. Loved it. Thought it was okay. Absolute disaster. All in all, resulting in a series that just went more and more downhill as I went on. In fact, I have said that if Kristen Brecker stopped at the first one, I think I would have enjoyed it as a standalone and been happy to move on. But yeah, on the whole, the series was a disappointment for me, I must say. I worked out how disappointed I was after reading book number 2, but decided there was only 1 book left. I might as well finish it off. Was hoping it was going to be good. Was let down even more than book 2. Alright, so let's put the books up on the screen, because it's just a whole lot easier doing it that way, and let's discuss them. So here's book number 1, Murder's No Votive Confidence. So being book number 1, this is the book that introduced me into this world. I was incredibly excited going into this book, and indeed the series, because of the series title name, the Nantucket Candlemaker Mystery Series. First of all, because it was something completely different. I'm used to culinary books or cozies or other types of cozies that seem to be the norm, but candle making, it's very different. Also, back in the day, not so much now, but back in the day, I used to love everything to do with candles. We have a candle store here in Australia called Dusk. I used to frequent that store all the time. So I just thought that this series sounded like it was right up my alley, based purely on the title of the series. But the first book gave me a great indication of just how little candle discussion was going to take place. So, in this book, we're introduced to our protagonist, whose name is Stella. Stella does run a candle store, but right from the beginning of this book, we find out that Stella has been invited to bring her candles along to a wedding. She's going to... Well, it's a candle-themed wedding, so she's been hired to be, I guess, part of the decorations for the wedding. And while they are there, there is a murder that ends up taking place, and it really does take over from the wedding. The victim who died was an integral part of the wedding party, and so the wedding can't really go ahead until we've found out what's going on. Because of this, because of both of those factors, first of all, that the theme was candle focused and we weren't in the store, and secondly, because the wedding couldn't go ahead until we solved the mystery, the first book was incredibly mystery leaning, which is generally not something that I love about cozies. I prefer for my cozies to be more cozy leaning, if anything. In saying that, Kristen Brecker had an absolutely amazing mystery on her hands with this book, and I truly did enjoy it. I really enjoyed following Stella as an amateur sleuth, and the reveal was just incredible. I gave it 4 stars, and I think it was a little more judgmental of me, to be honest. Hey, if I can't be honest about myself, who else can I be honest about? But I think the reason why I gave it 4 instead of 5 stars was because it did lack on the cozy side for me, which is not only something that I don't like, but especially for this series where I was so invested in the candle side, and that's what intrigued me. Not being as present, anywhere near as present as I wanted it to be, did let me down. But aside from that, it was a really enjoyable book. As I said, 4 stars. So let's put book number 2 up on the screen. This book, Murder Makes Sense. And I gave this book, as I said, 3 stars. So this one kind of got to me literally from the off. The book opens up in Paris, which just threw me because one of the great things about most cozy mysteries anyway is that they're set in small towns, so they have this small town vibe. So to pick up in such a large city like Paris just threw me. It was a massive curveball. Now Stella and her family end up going back home after they're in Paris, and it does ultimately make sense because the mystery that we ultimately end up having connects back to their time in Paris. So I guess fair enough, but in my opinion, we didn't really need it. We could have just said that. We could have kind of summed this up by telling as opposed to showing. Normally, I prefer showing than telling, but in this case, I felt like it took away from the cozy vibe. So we could have just had Stella at home say that she returned from Paris the day before, and while she was there, this happened, this happened, this happened. Okay, let's move on. Now suddenly here's the mystery. It just, it broke the vibe for me. The mystery did not work for me at all. There's not a lot. I remember I'm trying to recall. I have very, very, small details in my mind where there was a formula. I think it was for a perfume or a scent that maybe could be used for a candle or something to do with something smelling and something that smelled nice. It was a secret formula. And, the cop in this series was having a major issue, and so she was leaning on Stella, and you can tell how much it stayed with me and resonated with me because clearly I'm remembering next to nothing about it. It just, again, the mystery in this one let me down. The mystery in book 1 was so good, so that just almost let me down double because of how much I love the mystery in book 1. There is more cozy in this book, and I think that's what helped it to get 3 stars as opposed to 2 or 1. But really, it still didn't feel like enough. It just felt like there was more cozy compared to book 1. I go on a massive rant in my Goodreads review for this book, so I won't say a lot here. Feel free to go ahead and check that one out. But I was disappointed by the time I got to the end of this book. It felt like such a letdown compared to book number 1 and really wasn't encouraging me to pick up book number 3. So let's put book number 3 up on the screen. Here it is, 15 Minutes of Flame, book 3. Candle Maker, Untitled Candle Maker Mystery Series, and I gave this book 2 stars. Here is a great way to represent how I felt about this series. My heading for my review on Goodreads of this book reads as follows: just happy to have finished out the series. I think that kind of says it all. When you finish the final book in a series and your heading for the review is, I'm just glad that I've finished it. I mean, it was just such a letdown. So in this one, Stella ends up finding a skeleton in a garage thing somewhere, and this leads to a mystery. While going through this mystery, a crew is hired to go down a well. While this crew is in the well, one of the people ends up dying, and so we need to try and solve the murder of that. I struggled with giving you the premise there, and that is because I struggled to keep everything straight with the mystery because it just felt like there was just too much going on, and it was hard for me to focus on the mystery in this one. And the more I kept reading it, the more I was just thinking exactly as the heading for my review says, that I just want to get to the end. And got to the end and I was like, yay, I'm done with the series, I can let it go. Honestly, I feel like, I gave this book 2 stars. The cozy side, there was, again, the same amount of the cozy side that we had in book 2, which I appreciated, but by this point I was done. And if it was a 4-book series, I don't even know if I would have picked this one up, and had I definitely would not have picked up book number 4. Overall, the series just completely let me down. So I will most likely hang on to Murder's No Confidence, and just in my own mind, I'll think of this book as a standalone, and I will most likely be unhauling these 2 at the end of the year or the beginning of next year. So overall, a very disappointing series for me. It is what it is. Let's move on to the next one. So next up, we are going to talk about the Silver Six Crafting Mystery Series by Nancy Haddock. There are, once again, 3 books in this series, and the ratings in this one varied as well. However, This series' ratings was the exact opposite to the Nantucket Candlemaker mystery series. Let's see why. Book number 1 is called Basket Case, and in my opinion, it absolutely was. I gave it 2 stars. Book number 2 is called Paint the Town Dead. I gave this book 3 stars. And book number 3 is called A Crime of Poison, and I gave this book 4 stars. So, unlike with the Nantucket Candlemaker mystery series, the Silver Six Crafting mystery series got better and better as time went on. I just realized I didn't tell you what months I read them in. I read this one in May, this one in June, and this one in July. So literally one after the other, one a month, basically. All right, let's discuss them. We'll put book number 1 up on the screen, Basket Case by Nancy Haddock. This book was so incredibly disappointing from the off. Now, a book can get any sort of rating from me for any sort of reason, but I'm always almost extremely passionate. I'm almost always extremely passionate about the rating I give, unless I give it 3 stars, which is just middle of the road. If a book receives a 4-star or a 5-star for me, I'm extremely passionate on the positive side about my reasoning. If a book receives a 2 or a 1-star from me, I'm extremely negatively passionate with my reasoning. And this one received 2 stars for many reasons, but it disappointed me from the off. Not every book that receives 2 stars from me disappoints me from the off, but this one literally from the first sentence annoyed me. And the reason why is because we jump right into the mystery right away, and it's book 1. Book 1 in any sort of a series, whether it's a cozy mystery series or not, is the foundation laying for that series. We get, regardless of the genre, we get introduced to the setting, the characters, we get to know our situation. It just really assists us to get to know what it is that we're heading into as a whole. Again, regardless of the genre or the age rating, that's just the way that it is. I've read many series, that's what I'm used to. So when dealing specifically with a cozy mystery series, what I'm used to, first of all, is getting to know the series and the characters, which is called otherwise the cozy side, and then we jump into the mystery. This is because, well, regardless if it's a cozy mystery or not, the reason this occurs, in case you're wondering, and certainly in my opinion the reason it occurs, is to give us time to become invested in the world and in the characters. When you jump directly into a mystery, even in a thriller, like I'm just thinking now, even in a thriller or a standard mystery, when you jump right into the mystery, you don't have any sort of a foundation with which to build any sort of an investment in anything to do with the world itself or the characters, and so it makes no sense. Literally in sentence 1, we have our protagonist whose name is Nixie. Nixie's on the phone to a cop who is telling her that she has to rush down to her auntie's house because something's happened and she needs to find out what's going on. And some people might be intrigued by that opening, but I just wasn't. I understand that you need a hook to get people into the first book, which will lead them into the series, but to start off with a mystery right away from the get-go, when I don't even know these people, it just really turned me off. And then the mystery as a whole just did not work for me. I'm really not going to spend too much time even talking too much about this first book because it just didn't work for so many reasons. I was not at all intrigued by the mystery side, not to mention the cozy side. The series is called the Silver Six Crafting Mystery Series. It is called this because we have, aside from our protagonist, we have a bunch of older people who are part of a group that call themselves the Silver Six Crafters. They craft things together, and I mean, on the front cover we have this, we have a basket, as you can see, and I assumed it was it was filled with yarn, so they probably did like some knitting or crocheting or something, and that had me incredibly intrigued. And yeah, no. There was like maybe 5% of the cozy side, and it was just more like a mention in passing. Like, oh, by the way, how's the crafting going? Oh, it's going great. Back to the mystery. Like, wait, what? That's the cozy side? And it just, I had so many issues with this book. And a lot of people ended up reading this book. So I was buddy reading this book with Tiffany from the Beach Farm Bookworm, and a lot of y'all joined us when you found out we were doing this buddy read, and I was so regretful about that when I did my monthly wrap and spoke about this book, I said, I'm so sorry for those of you who picked up this book and didn't enjoy it, because I thought it would be better than it was. The best thing about this book, honestly, is the cover. I think the cover is absolutely stunning, and if I could blow it up and frame it, I would, but the contents inside just did not work for me at all. It was just not a good start for me. So I end up giving it 2 stars. So to Paint the Town Dead, book number 2, and I was incredibly worried going into this one after what had happened in book number 1, and all I could think was, if they just give me one example where someone is teaching someone else how to craft one teeny tiny little thing, I'll enjoy it. Well, that happened, and so much more. This was such an improvement for the series as a whole, and the only reason it received 3 stars as opposed to more than that was because I didn't enjoy the mystery. So that is unfortunate, but the cozy side was just a polar opposite to book 1. It was almost like Nancy Haddock was told, look, you weren't that cozy in book 1, so kind of kick it up a notch in book 2, and she did. And I really, truly enjoyed that. Anytime we focused on the mystery, it just completely bored me. But anytime we focused on the cozy side, I just had so much fun with book number 2. Okay, very quick story. In March of 2020, I read the Lord of the Rings series. It's gonna relate. Trust me, I have a point. I did not enjoy any of those books, but I pre-planned to give each book in that series immunity that month, which meant that no matter how I thought about any of them, I couldn't DNF any of them. I struggled my way through The Hobbit and then read the first 3 books, so I already was not connecting with it. I didn't like any of the books, and I learned very quickly and very early on that after reading that series, I would DNF any book anytime I wanted to. If I picked up book 1 in a series and I didn't like it, not only would I DNF the first book, but I would DNF the series as a whole. That's fine. There are so many books out there. But I picked up book 2 in this one, and I'm so glad that I did, because on the cozy side, it was such a massive turnaround. To go from 2 stars and me just really not enjoying it at all to turning things around and me really loving the cozy side was just mad props to Nancy Haddock on that one. So 3 stars for this one from me. I'm not going to give you too much of the premise because a lot of it just isn't sticking with me at the moment, but I do immensely remember enjoying myself when it came to the cozy side. Alright, let's put up book number 3 now. This book, A Crime of Poison, either the final book in the series or at least the one where I'm the most up to date. And I am incredibly disappointed with myself because my review of this book is really not giving me much at all. My review of this book literally says such an improvement over the course of the series XOXO. So that really doesn't help me. And I like looking at my reviews because it transports me back in time to that moment. And yeah, so it wasn't really helping me much, but I will say that obviously giving it 4 stars, I really did enjoy it. I honestly can't remember much about it at all, so I'm assuming I enjoyed both the mystery and the cozy side. I wish I could give you more, but one thing that I can absolutely say is the trajectory of the series was fantastic. To go from 2 stars to 3 stars to 4 stars, if I did read a book 4, maybe it would get 5 stars from me. So a massive improvement overall from Nancy Haddock. And I must say, overall, it is a good series. It's just one of those series where if you don't like book 1, you're not alone. Please give book 2 a go and see what you think from there. So that is the Silver Six Crafting Mystery Series by Nancy Haddock. And now on to my final book of 3, and that is this series, which is the Cape Cod Foodie Mystery Series by Amy Pershing. Book number 1 is A Side of Murder. I read this in May and I gave it 4 stars. Book number 2 is An Eggnog to Die For. I read this in June and I gave this 2 stars. And book number 3 is Murder's No Picnic. I read this in July and I gave it 4 stars. Let's put book number 1 up on the screen, A Side of Murder, book number 1 in the series. Okay, so in this one we are following Samantha Barnes, who is a food critic, and so I thought that the series would appeal to me as a whole because I love my culinary reads. The book opens up with Samantha and some of her friends at a restaurant. They're about to eat some food and she's there for work and they're there for fun, basically, and a body is discovered in the water outside of the restaurant. It's discovered very early on. So this is one of those books, one of those cozies where we jump into the mystery early on. We don't jump into the mystery from sentence or page 1, which I appreciated, but we did jump in early on. Honestly, my thoughts overall was that I enjoyed the mystery side and I enjoyed the cozy side, but I felt that the cozy side could have been a lot more cozy. One thing I absolutely do love, and you can see him on the cover, is the puppy. Oh my gosh, he is adorable. His name is Diogi. Diogi was named before Samantha moved to this town. I think she's in New York. So yeah, before she moved to New York, she was given the home she stayed in. It was bequeathed to her by someone who died, and DOG came with the house. DOG was named because how do you spell dog? D-O-G. And yeah, DOG, very, very faithful companion. I appreciated that there was a dog in this cozy, because the majority of the cozies that I've read, if they have an animal companion, is usually a cat. And while I have no issues with cats, I love them. My mum's not a fan. Sorry, mum, if you're watching. But I don't mind them. But it was just interesting to mix it up and have a dog in this one. There are a number of series that are cozies that have dogs. I just haven't come across a lot of them. And this was the first series I came across that had a dog as opposed to a cat. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. One thing I love about the series as a whole, and we're introduced to this in this first book, is that Samantha ends up making friends with her next door neighbor, who is this older woman who basically just comes with a proviso of bring a bottle of something to drink over and you can vent to me at any time. I want her as a friend. I could go over to her house every day with a bottle of wine and just be like, right, time to vent. Let's go. Here's a bottle. You know? And I don't drink alcohol, or I very seldom drink alcohol. So, you know, but yeah, I won't give away too much. So it was much more mystery leaning than cozy leaning. I did enjoy the mystery, and that's why it got 4 stars. And I also liked the cozy side, but I do feel that the cozy side could have been amped up a little more. 4 stars ultimately. Okay, so putting book number 2 up on the screen, An Eggnog to Die For, and yeah, this was a disappointing one for me, and considering I end up giving book number 3 4 stars, I feel it was maybe middle book syndrome, but something that I had discovered after I had read book 2 is that Amy Pershing as an author for me as a whole was probably not the author for me. There were a couple of reasons why. So the first one was her writing style. It just felt a little bit dense for me, and for a cozy mystery series, that just did not work for me. I feel that for a cozy series, the writing style should be easy to read, because that would make it a lot more cozy than if you're going into a genre of a series or even a standalone where you would expect more purple prose or a more flowery writing style, and the writing style just did not work for me. Also, at the end of this book, I felt that the series had been miscategorized. I felt like the series should have just been referred to as a mystery series and not a cozy mystery series, because it didn't feel cozy enough for me. Another point that I made was that there's a relationship in this series, and considering it's a 3-book series, by the end of book 2, the relationship was nowhere near moving along far enough for me for that point. And so overall, I was just honestly let down by it. I was not intrigued by the mystery at all in this book. And also, I didn't really feel that invested in the characters, aside from the dog. I still love the dog, and I think a big part of the reason it got 2 stars as opposed to 1 was because of Diogi. Diogi is literally the star of the series. But yeah, as for Samantha, she was just a character that I didn't find to be that investable, especially in book number 2. All of these thoughts and feelings that I had are a personal opinion, and everyone's going to, think their own thoughts because of their own personal opinion. But for me, I just didn't find any of the characters to be relatable or investable, and that did let me down as well, ultimately giving it 2 stars. I love the cover. So again, just like with Basket Case, that was a letdown for me because the cover is just so beautiful. Oh my goodness, I want to blow it up and frame it. But yeah, the contents inside just did not work for me. So 2 stars for that one. So enter book number 3, Murder is No Picnic, and this one was so much better. To the point that I was mentioning in my review that I don't know if this is the final book in the series or not, but if it is, I feel like Amy Pershing, I was going to say Samantha there, that is the protagonist, Amy Pershing hit her stride with the last book. I really, truly enjoyed this book for a number of different reasons, so I'll point out some examples. The first one being that we had a minimalistic cast of characters. One of the biggest hurdles to overcome when writing a cozy mystery series, where generally speaking the requirement for each cozy book is that it is short. This is not always the case. Check out the Poppy McAllister series. They get longer and longer as they go along, which like close to 500 pages. But generally speaking, cozies are between 250 and 300 pages long, is that if you have too many characters, it can be really hard to keep in mind everyone. And sometimes when I have a reveal for the mystery at the end, I can't help but think, who? As in, who are you? Because there's just too many people to keep track of everyone. But I felt like Amy Pershing had the exact right amount of characters in this one. Also, this one was a whole lot more cozy than the first two books, which is another reason why I felt like Amy Pershing really hit her stride with this one. Another great example that I can give you that ties into the cozy side is that the mystery is wrapped up entirely 9 chapters before the end of the book. And so the final 9 chapters are all completely focused on the cozy side, which I enjoyed tremendously. I think, just wrapping up book 3, I really, really enjoyed book 3 a lot. And if this is the end of the series, then I'm kind of sad about that because I felt like Amy Pershing really hit her stride, and she hit her stride right at the end. I think overall, Book 1, I really enjoyed the mystery side. Book 2, but there wasn't enough cozy. Book 2, I did not enjoy at all. And book number 3, the cozy side was amped up, and I really, really appreciated that. The main running thing that was a pro for me throughout this series was Dog, the dog. I loved Dog all the way through. I don't always say that about animals. I mean, I love Amish Candy Shop, and I like Jethro, but Jethro is not the selling point for me in Amish Candy Shop. I like Jethro, but he's not my favorite character. In this series, the selling point was definitely the dog. The dog is just such a beautiful dog and such a perfect animal character for this series. So I did really appreciate that. But yeah, Amy Pershing definitely ended the series on a personal high for me. And with this one, I ultimately ended up giving it, I misspoke before, I ultimately ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I don't know why I gave it 0.5, and I don't think I said. I don't think I said. So I deducted a 0.5, and I don't know why, but ultimately it was my favorite book of the series. I hope it's not the last one, but if it is, hey, Amy Pershing definitely went out with a bang. And so that is the conclusion of the Cape Cod Foodie Mystery series by Amy Pershing. And now for everyone's favourite game that we like to call Up. These are all of the books that I spoke about, comprising of 3 series, each comprising of 3 books that I have completed on my SAS list in 2022. Do you have 3 series that you would like to discuss with me? Please feel free to do so in the comments section below. I'd love to read about it. Alright, I will be back again next week, same time, with another look at some series that I've completed on my SAS list. But until then, I'm going to let you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another, and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.